Hi everyone, I am Urja Parekh and today I am going to be presenting my research work on the project titled Differential Identification of Biomarkers between Normal Neural Stem Cells and Glioblastoma Stem Cells. Before I proceed, let me speak a little bit about myself. I am currently a master's student pursuing biomedical science at Sunandan Devetia School of Science, which is a part of the NMIMS University at Mumbai, Maharashtra, India. I want to pursue my PhD in neuroscience with a focus in the understanding of pathogenesis of neurodegenerative disorders. As you can see, I'm extremely passionate about research and spend most of my time in the animal tissue culture lab in my college performing some sort of research work. So, to give you an understanding as to what my project is about, let me tell you something about glioblastoma. Glioblastoma multiforme is a type of glioma tumor, which is a brain cancer. This brain cancer is one of the most malignant, heterogeneous, and invasive type of cancer that there is. It originates in the brain in the subventricular zone. The subventricular zone is enriched in stem cells. Patients diagnosed with glioblastoma have a very poor survival rate. Without therapy, they only survive for 2 to 3 months, and with the best therapeutic regimen that there is, they only survive for 15 months. Clinicians, scientists, doctors are all trying to find out how to improve the overall survival of these patients. Despite multiple studies of glioblastoma, very little is understood about the pathogenesis of this particular cancer. There exist two theories that state the origin of glioblastoma in the brain. One theory is the cancer stem cell theory that purports that glioblastoma arises from cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are a type of stem cells that drive tumor initiation, proliferation, and even impart resistance to therapies. And therefore, glioblastoma is extremely resistant to therapies. The other theory that exists around glioblastoma origination is that um, normal neural stem cells present in the subventricular zone of the brain undergo some sort of mutation and dysregulation in the signaling pathways that lead to the transformation of these normal neural stem cells into glioblastoma tumor. Therefore, my rationale behind this particular project is to understand what exactly is different between normal neural stem cells and cancer stem cells and which theory is actually true. So, as I said earlier, there are studies that have stated that there are certain pathways like the ARF-P53 pathway that may be dysregulated in the neural stem cells, and because of which the normal stem cells get transformed and form high-grade glioma. Studies have also shown that there are multiple marker genes that may be common between glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. These could be SOX2, NanoG, or LIT2, which are popular Yamanaka factors that are known for its presence or expression in stem cells. So this might underpin the malignant growth potential of these glioma cells, and there might be other genetic and epigenetic alterations in the normal stem cells that may be causing the stem cells to become cancerous. So there are multiple studies that speak about the common factors or common markers between glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells, and therefore for me it was important to understand what exactly is the difference between cancer stem cells or glioma stem cells in this case and the normal neural stem cells. This will be important so that we can target only the markers present on glioma stem cells for therapy, or we could only look at biomarkers of glioma stem cells to understand the prognosis of glioblastoma. So, as I emphasize again, the research question that I was looking at was to distinguish normal neural stem cells from glioma stem cells to be able to target biomarkers that are enriched only in glioblastoma patients. So I drafted an outline as to how I wanted to perform my study. So first, step was to find data. So that for that I looked at geo data sets, and finally came to a geo data set that consisted of the samples that I was looking for, which were glioma stem cells and glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. So after getting the RNA-seq data from the geo data set, from the SRA project associated with the geo data set, I ran an RNA-seq pipeline on the TBioInfo platform, and then normalized and filtered the gene expression table that I got, and performed a differential expression analysis to obtain lists of genes that are enriched in both the samples of glioma stem cells and neural stem cells. After getting a list of genes, my aim was to only look at the most highly or most significantly expressed genes in terms of log-fold change in glioma stem cells and neural stem cells. After doing that, I also performed unsupervised or hierarchical clustering to understand how these samples are grouped together, or whether neural stem cells are getting grouped together and cancer stem cells are getting grouped together, and whether there are any significant differences between these two samples. So, as I already said, my first step was to look at the RNA-seq data. So, the SRA study that I was looking at was SRP 200400, which was associated with the geo data set GSC 132172. So, this particular data set had 188 samples consisting of either glioma stem cells or normal neural stem cells. Out of these, I took 20 samples of glioma stem cells. These stem cells were established as a cell line termed as GLIN S2, and I took other 20 samples of normal neural stem cells that was established as a cell line called CD660. So after downloading the run table from this SRA study of 40 samples, I performed the next step of doing the RNA-seq pipeline. Again, the objective was to find the differences between glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells in terms of gene expression. So for the exploratory data analysis bit, I performed the RNA-seq pipeline. As you can see, I've used TopHat2, cufflinks, cuffmerge, VOTI2T, and finally got the gene expression data in FPKM units. After I got the gene expression data, I made it undergo quantile normalization and log scaling to remove background noise. The next thing I did was to perform PCA, which is principal component analysis. So this is the first graph that I got with the gene expression data of all the 40 samples with all the genes present in my data. So as you can see, glioma stem cells clustered together and neural stem cells clustered together. However, there was one outlier, which I'll be speaking about later, that that was placed away from both the glioma stem cell samples and the normal neural stem cell samples. So this glioma stem cell sample had some sort of gene expression that was somewhere in the middle of glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. With this particular graph, I got a PC1 component of 10.31% and PC2 component of 8.90%. This did not account for a lot of variability across samples, and therefore I decided to remove the outlier and again run the PCA. So after doing that, after removing the outlier, you can see that my PC1 component improved significantly. I got the PC1 component as 88.03% and PC2 as 2.13%. This signifies that the PCA has accounted for substantial variability across samples. Again, we can see that the neural stem cells are clustered together and the glioma stem cells are clustered together, and there is a very good separation between these two types of samples that signifies that there are significant differences between glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. The next thing that I did was to use this gene expression data to perform differential expression analysis to understand the significantly expressed genes in normal neural stem cells and glioma stem cells. So I use the DSeq2 pipeline for this, and got a volcano plot, as you can see on the slide. So on the left hand side of the plot, I got genes that were enriched in normal neural stem cells, and on the right hand side of the plot, I got genes that were enriched in glioma stem cells. So as you can see that there are multiple genes that I got in this particular analysis, and therefore to cut down on the number of genes that were actually only highly expressed in either of the samples, I used certain filtering techniques. So for that, firstly, I only took the genes that had a p-adjusted value of lesser than 0.05. So that means that their significance of expression was true, or the threshold was true. Secondly, I filtered the genes according to the log2 fold change values. For normal neural stem cells, I only took the genes whose expression levels were lesser than -3. So this would give me the fold change of genes which were the most highly expressed in normal neural stem cells. Similarly, for glioma stem cells, I only took genes that had an expression level of greater than 3. And therefore, I only got genes that were the most highly expressed in glioma stem cells. So as you can see, that 192 genes that were significantly expressed in glioma stem cells were obtained, and 156 genes that were significantly expressed in normal neural stem cells were obtained. Now these genes were enlisted as ensemble gene IDs, and I also got a few XLOC IDs. Now these XLOC IDs are basically cufflink IDs that are either novel genes that have never been identified, or this particular plot was not able to identify the gene. So in my downstream analysis, I have tried to find the meaning of these XLOC genes as well. Going further, I used the gene list that I obtained for glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells and uploaded them on an online genome annotation tool called David. So over here, I've done a comparative analysis of all the hits that I got from both the gene lists that I had put as input for glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. So for glioma stem cells, the first chart that I looked at was the ones for disease. So the top hits included schizophrenia, ADHD, tobacco use disorder, depression, body height, body weight, autism, myocardial infarction. For NSCs, the functional annotation chart for disease included Alzheimer's disease, respiratory function test, tobacco use disorder, body weight, bone mineral density, macular degeneration, and alcoholism. So this basically indicated that the gene list that I obtained were enriched in these particular diseases. However, in neither of the samples did I get anything related to glioma or gliomagenesis or glioblastoma multiforme. Therefore, it is important to look at the gene list that I have obtained and study the gene list in order to understand its exact role in the disease of glioblastoma. The next functional annotation chart that I looked at was the one for keywords, for which I got hits such as disulfide bond, glycoprotein signal, MHC2, cell adhesion, cell membrane, alternative splicing, polymorphism, transmembrane. And for normal neural stem cells, I got keyword hits such as extracellular matrix, secreted, glycoprotein signal, calcium, disulfide bond, disease mutation, membrane, and transmembrane. So basically, the gene list that I obtained for either of the samples gave this particular keyword hits because the genes had this particular function. Now this does make sense because for glioma stem cells, it is important for the role of cell adhesion, cell membrane, and certain genes that undergo alternative splicing to form certain maybe mutated types of proteins that are involved in gliomagenesis. For normal neural stem cells, it was obvious why extracellular matrix and glycoprotein signals and calciums were received as hits, because stem cells do require these kind of proteins or gene expression in order to survive and proliferate. The next function annotation chart that I looked at was sequence features, which gave hits for glioma stem cells such as glycosylation, N-linked, signal peptide, disulfide bond, topological domain, transmembrane, splice variant, sequence variant. And for normal neural stem cells, the top hits included signal peptide glycosylation, LRR, 6. LRR stands for leucine-rich repeats, EGF like 6, LRR 5, 1, 2, 7, disulfide bond, and topological domain, which is cytoplasmic. Again, this signifies what kind of sequence features does the protein expressed by the genes enriched in the list contains. So, as I look back at literature, I could see that these sequence features are involved in the pathogenesis of glioblastoma. So certain changes in the proteins may cause dysregulation and therefore lead to tumorigenesis. The next thing that I looked at was functional clustering for both the gene lists of samples of glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells. So I got 27 clusters in each glioma stem cell list and normal neural stem cell list. However, the annotation cluster 1 for the glioma stem cell list had a higher enrichment score as compared to the annotation cluster 1 list of normal neural stem cells, and it had more terms within the cluster. So, as you can see in the glioma stem cells, there were terms such as glycosylation site, disulfide bond, glycoprotein, signal peptide, signal, disulfide bond again, topological domains that are cytoplasmic. This basically signifies that there are genes present in the list that I have inserted onto David that are enriched in these particular features, and they have a certain role in the formation of glioma tumors. Similarly, in the annotation cluster 1 of normal neural stem cells, we had terms such as extracellular matrix and other terms related to ECM, like proteinaceous extracellular matrix and extracellular matrix organization. This again is understandable because extracellular matrix proteins are required for normal neural stem cells to proliferate and survive, because stem cells require a niche enriched in extracellular matrix proteins in order to survive. So the other in annotation clusters of glioma stem cells, there were terms such as metallothioproteins and certain mineral absorption proteins that we got as hits. This does make sense because looking back at literature, I found the involvement of a lot of metallothionein proteins associated with the poor prognosis of glioblastoma patients, and therefore they do play some sort of role in the pathogenesis of the disease. The next thing was to perform a heat map analysis. So for this, I have only taken the top 25 genes from the glioma stem cell list and top 25 genes from the normal neural stem cell list, and therefore a total of 50 gene expression data. So basically this consisted of all the genes that were the most highly expressed in glioma stem cells and the most highly expressed in neural stem cells, and to see how much significance do these genes have in terms of differentiating the neural stem cell samples from glioma stem cell samples. So as you can see in the heat map, on the left hand side we have the gene expression levels of neural stem cells, and on the right hand side we have gene expression level of glioma stem cells. So on the top left corner, we have most of the genes signified as red. Red indicates that these particular genes were downregulated or not expressed in neural stem cells compared to glioma stem cells. On the top right corner, we have glioma stem cells and the genes expressed in those samples, and you can see that we are observing green colored boxes over there. This indicates that these particular genes were highly expressed in the glioma stem cell sample in comparison to neural stem cells, and therefore there is a significant difference in the gene expression levels between these two samples. On the top, in the bottom left corner, we have genes that were significantly or highly expressed in neural stem cells and were downregulated or not expressed in the glioma stem cells, as indicated in red. We also are observing a lot of boxes that have mixed colors. This indicates noise, and therefore we must perform further analysis to look at only those genes that do not give noise in the data. But all in all, this signified that there are many genetic changes that are present between normal neural stem cells and glioma stem cells, and therefore there may be a genetic shift that is significant between these two samples, which clearly points out that glioma stem cells do actually differ from neural stem cells, even though they might be sharing some common features. The next thing I did was a downstream analysis of the genes in the pathways. So, just to simplify what is given as pictorial representation over here, the first picture shows a gene called anikin that was present on my gene list, and it has an involvement in the pathway of cell adhesion. So, it performs some cytoskeletal rearrangement and is responsible for cell adhesion. Mutation in this gene would lead to head and neck cancers, and therefore this signifies that anikin is a gene that is known for its involvement in the pathogenesis of head and neck cancers. The next picture shows an integrin called alpha 2 beta 1, which is an integrin protein, and it has a role in the inhibition of angiogenesis. Downregulation of alpha 2 beta 1 or a mutation in this particular gene would therefore promote angiogenesis, which is one of the most major hallmarks of cancer. It is also involved in cell migration, proliferation, and survival, and even vascular permeability, all of which are involved in cancer pathogenesis if these genes are dysregulated. There was another gene called lumikin, which is also known for its involvement in p53 regulation, and a mutation in this lumikin gene would lead to anti-apoptotic behavior, which is again another hallmark of cancer. We also know that the Wnt signaling pathway is involved in many cancers. Mutation or dysregulation of the Wnt signaling pathway leads to prolonged proliferation and survival of tumor cells. The next thing was alpha 3 beta gene, which is again a gene present on the gene list and is involved in a pathway that causes tumor cell migration and survival. Other genes also were integrin proteins, and another protein called caveolin, which was involved in the mTOR signaling pathway that further leads to proliferation and survival. And also, if the caveolin gene is mutated, growth suppression that should be present in normal healthy cells is dysregulated and therefore leads to survival of abnormal tumor cells. So this is to give you an overview that the genes that were present in the list that I obtained are actually known to be involved in many pathways that are involved in the pathogenesis of cancer. Again, I had received a lot of other pathway hits as well. So these particular genes that you can see in green and red are, so the ones in green are upregulated in neural stem cells, and the ones in red are upregulated in glioma stem cells. These particular genes are actively involved in certain pathways of the neural system, and their dysregulation will of course lead to some sort of growth defect and tumor survival. Again, we have another chart that is speaking of the genes present in my list that are involved in ECM receptor interaction. Dysregulation of these genes would cause some sort of tumor pathway initiation and would lead to the invasiveness of the cancer, which is again another feature of any type of cancer, and especially glioblastoma. Again, this is just to signify that there are so many genes that are present in my gene list that have its known presence in the axon guidance pathway or the calcium signaling pathway present in neurons. And these pathways are responsible for multiple functions of the nervous system. Clearly, if these genes are dysregulated, it would cause some sort of impairment in their functions and lead to tumorigenesis of glioblastoma cells. Even in the calcium signaling pathway, we can see that its dysregulation would lead to proliferation and MAPK signaling pathway that is then involved in tumorigenesis. In the second part of my downstream analysis, I took the top 25 genes from each of the stem cell samples, glioma stem cells and the normal neural stem cells. So these 25 genes were the most highly expressed genes in these samples. What I did was I found out the identity of the gene on the basis of its ensemble gene ID, and I derived their function in normal conditions and its function in glioma using literature. So as you can see, the first gene that I looked at was S100B in glioma stem cells. That was the most highly expressed gene in the glioma stem cells. Its normal function is involved in the regulation of cellular processes such as cell cycle progression and differentiation. After looking at literature, I also found out that high serum levels of S100B is actually associated with poor prognosis in glioma patients. That means that S100B has already been classified as a prognosis biomarker for glioma. The next gene was PLP1, which is proteolipid protein 1, and has a function of production of myelin in normal cells. However, when I tried to look back at literature that involved PLP1 association with glioma, I did find certain studies, but they did not talk about how exactly is PLP1 associated with the pathogenesis of glioblastoma, and therefore more studies need to be done that associate this gene with the pathogenesis of this tumor. Similarly, I found out the function of each of the genes that were present on the list and its association with glioblastoma, and therefore using this particular analysis, we can actually only then focus on proteins and find out its association with glioblastoma tumors. Similarly, I performed the same steps for the genes that were most highly expressed in neural stem cells and how their dysregulation is associated with glioblastoma pathogenesis. In this particular sample, I had observed a lot of X-lock cuff-link gene IDs as well, some of whose identity was unknown, and therefore it would be extremely interesting for scientists to look at these particular genes and understand its identity and function in glioblastoma. All in all, this is to say that from the gene list that I got, there were multiple genes whose function in glioblastoma is still not known, and therefore this gives a future prospect for other scientists to use these particular genes and focus on their role in glioblastoma. Finally, I performed a hierarchical clustering analysis to understand how the samples are clustered together. As you can see on the left hand side of the chart, glioblastoma stem cell samples were clustered together and neural stem cell samples were clustered together. However, the one outlier that I had earlier shown in the PCA was clustered separately from the normal neural stem cells and glioma stem cells. However, it lied closer to normal neural stem cells despite being a glioma stem cell sample. So this particular sample, when I looked at its gene expression levels, it was very different from its counterparts. Despite being a glioma stem cell, it was showing certain expression levels that were more common with neural stem cells. If we study this particular sample in much more detail, I think this particular sample would be able to or be an example for understanding how neural stem cells transition to glioma stem cells, and support the theory that dysregulation of neural stem cells actually cause the formation of glioma stem cells. Again, I performed a PCA, but this time I only used the gene expression levels of the 50 genes that I was previously speaking about. As you can see on the left hand side, we have neural stem cells clustered together, and on the right hand side, we have the glioma stem cells clustered together. Over here, we again found the outlier that I was speaking about that has gene expression levels different from both the types of samples. And it would be important to study to understand the transition between neural stem cells and glioma stem cells. The PC1 component was 90.15%, which signified a good amount of variability between these samples. And as you can see, the separation was also very good in this PCA. I also performed a PCA without the outlier, and I got a PC1 component of 89.69%. Again, a little lower than the previous chart, but not significantly lower. So, but over here you can see that the neural stem cell samples are slightly more spread out as compared to glioma stem cell samples that are tightly clustered together. So maybe this means that neural stem cells were slightly different than each other, and the glioma stem cells were closer in terms of their gene expression levels. So to conclude the findings of my study, I performed an RNA-seq analysis to understand the differences of biomarker expression in glioma stem cells and neural stem cells. I got 192 genes that were significantly expressed in glioma stem cells, and 156 genes that were significantly expressed in normal neural stem cells. I filtered these genes to get the top 25 genes that were the most highly or significantly enriched genes in glioma stem cells, and similarly for normal neural stem cells. And with literature review, I understood that these particular genes would be important biomarkers for therapeutic targeting and could also be good prognostic biomarkers. On performing hierarchical clustering, I got two different clusters of glioma stem cells and normal neural stem cells that signify that these two types of samples are actually different. And despite having certain common characteristics, they still differ significantly in terms of their expression values. The outlier was also obtained, which was an interesting observation and could be studied further to understand the transience of normal neural stem cells to glioma stem cells. Future prospects of this particular study are as I already said, there are multiple genes who have not been associated with the glioblastoma pathogenesis, and these can be further studied. The genes can be further targeted using therapeutic drugs, and then again we could understand the gene expression changes with drug targeting. We could also perform a supervised learning analysis to understand whether the stem cells that we were looking at in the study were in the proliferative state or the quiescent state. And lastly, we can understand the significance of these particular biomarkers that we obtain in terms of prognosis, and we can only target glioma stem cells and not normal neural stem cells, understanding which genes are only expressed in glioma stem cells. Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity. Thank you, Ilya sir, thank you, Mohit sir, and thank you, Beeksha ma'am, for providing me your invaluable guidance throughout the research project.